Welcome to Tim Talks. This week, I am very, very, very excited about what we have to share. As we continue to try to get better together, there are many people that I have met over the last 5.5 years at Carnell that obviously I meet a lot of impressive people, but our guest today, David Steinberg, has become a dear friend, and I have so much respect for him. And quite frankly, there's several products that I have seen, obviously our product being one of them, but that I have seen along the way and through my travels that I went back, to Atlanta at home and said, man, what a difference that would have made in my dealership if I would have just had that tool. So before I even let David speak, I just want to let you know that listen, he just speaks it the way it is, good, bad, or ugly. And the topic today, he made a comment in one of the posts that we had. It's going to get weird. And, we are all about sharing data with you, good data, bad data, what to look at, and just excited. So let me just shut my pie hole and introduce to you my dear friend, someone that's one of the brightest minds, I truly believe, in the automotive space, David Steinberg. David, welcome to Tim Talks, my friend.
Tim, thank you. Thank you. That's probably an exaggerated. You gave me too much credit, but that's.
And by the way, look, I like to laugh. I like comedy. And if you have not heard a David Steinberg presentation I heard him the first time at an FCA in the Southeast Business Center, and he had everybody on the floor. So I love to provide humor and presentations, and David, you just crushed it there. So I've pumped you up so much that people are going to be let down if this sucks. So that's up to you.
Well, now they're expecting a comedy show, so we'll have to mix
awesome.
Stuff in. So
that's good, man. That's good. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, I think it was funny when Holly was asking me for the title of like what we were going to talk about. I was like, I gave it to you, but I didn't tell my marketing team, because I told my marketing team after I gave it to you, data hypocrisy. I'm like, they're going to kill me. They're not going to want me to talk about this. And it's a landmine topic a little bit, right? Because I think that we're both data hypocrites in certain ways. So I think it's a little landminey. So I'm excited to try to navigate this.
Look, and you got to be able to analyze what you are doing. And, a lot of companies like ours have self-generated reports. They have self-generated reports that obviously highlight. Now, we do give you a total data picture, but leads, conversions, so on and so forth. But there are, and I have seen other reports elsewhere, especially when I was sitting behind the desk, to where the report numbers didn't add up, number one. And number two, highlighting things. There's one company that I won't mention that literally puts into lead buckets if they don't have, if they just have a customer's name and they don't have a way of contacting that customer. So for example, email or cell phone number, they still count it as a lead. That's hypocrisy. But I really want to get you were the guest on Tim Talks today. What do you mean when you say data hypocrisy?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think like just looking at for the last 20 years. So I'm 43, right? I started my career when I was 20. And when I first started programming, data was, space was the limiter, right? So when you were programming something, you were collecting a piece of information that was going to, start populating in your database. You had to worry about I'm going to run out of space. And the big data revolution really happened when space stopped being the limiter, right? So they said all of a sudden, with Amazon and with managed hosting, you had all this space and you could store whatever you wanted. So the data revolution started because it was this idea of just store everything and we'll figure out how to analyze it later. And back then I think too, everybody knew that at the time there weren't the tools to be able to analyze massive amounts of data, but you could see that, okay, AI and machine learning and these things are coming. So just start collecting all of this data. And I remember, at NADA years ago, it was like every booth was data, data, data. And like, we have all this data. And the idea was like, just collect it and you'll find the value somewhere in that. I think the reality is like right now in 2020, we're in like the data hangover phase where we were sort of promised that if you collect all this data, there's going to be all this value. And the reality is for most, it's actually not, it's been pretty disappointing. The data revolution has not been as advertised. And I think at its core, like data hypocrisy is when we say, look, our data is going to give you these, it's going to allow you to make these actionable decisions. It's going to give you all this, and it doesn't. It's not. And, you can still have a great product that doesn't do that. But I think that we're all kind of dealing with this fact that we're in an industry that's incredibly siloed. And all of our data, the CarNow data, the Foureyes data, the CRM data, the DMS data, on its own, set in its own little silo, it's actually not that valuable. It's when we really start to connect the pieces. But I think we have to sort of drop the data hypocrisy and say like, hey, look, our data is part of a whole story. And how do we allow dealers to have access to the whole story? Because that's where we're going to see like the real evolution, the real improvements. And so, I think that like the data, I'm a data hypocrite. We're now looking at our own hypocrisy and saying, okay, how do we change our behavior to say, we don't want to be hypocritical. This is the dealer's data. What are we doing to allow them to make actionable decisions based off this? It's an interesting time to ask the question too. We're seeing data hypocrisy in COVID and how the COVID data is being distorted and used. And so like, I think it's just an interesting time to ask yourself questions about what's the role of data? How do we do it? I think too, like when everyone's dealing with this fact that they have this data, they don't quite know how to make it actionable. That's the reality for 95% of vendors. They're looking at their data, trying to figure out how to give actionable decision, give it in a way that a dealer can make an actionable decision.
Right.
And so absent that, they then put up all these walls. So this is security. The reason I can't allow you access to your data is security. I mean, that's just a bunch of BS.
Let's park there just for a second. Yeah. And for those of you guys that don't know, again, never ever will you hear anyone at CarNow throw stones at anyone. But just to let you know, I've sat behind that desk, and there are some companies out there that collect your data and then tell the dealer principal or the general manager that they then cannot give you your own data. It's crazy. Expand on that a little bit, because look, we've got all walks of life, all job descriptions that tune into Tim Talks. But would you expand on that a little bit about what's going on with the dealer's own data? And by data, we're talking about everything: shopping behavior, talking about how many times they clicked on a particular car. So then you can figure out what colors they like, what models they like, so on and so forth, and then keeping that. And then some companies even trying to sell that back to the dealer after they've already paid them as a vendor. Just expand on that, what you're talking about a little bit there, David.
Well, I mean, I think what's the definition of ownership, right? If you own the data, how do you get it, right? Where does it and can you move it somewhere, right? If I own a car, I can drive that car, right? But we're essentially saying, well, you own this data, but you got to keep it parked right here. You can't actually, we're not going to give you the ability to take it and drive, so I think that, but there's a development challenge in that too, because the way that us vendors develop has to change in order to allow that, because like that space is evolving really quickly. So like in the old days, if let's say, for example, I had a data question, right? In the old days, I would go to my development team and I would say, okay, guys, I'm trying to analyze this. Can you build this? And it would take them weeks to build the answer to that, to build me the answer. And it would usually be they would do what I said, not what I meant, right. Like, and then it would be weeks and weeks. And now with all the data visualization tools that are available, it no longer has to hit your development team, right? You can put it into a tool, like we use Tableau, which is heavy, right? But there's less heavy tools that you can put that data in and allow pretty like low, like, you know, low technical talent that can access and do it. I mean, they have to have some data background, but we as vendors need to start having the conversation of, hey, if you want to analyze the data, here's how you can. Here's the underlying data set if you really own that data. Somebody asked, what's a less heavy data tool that David would recommend dealers are using? I mean, the Google Suite, I just blanked on the Google's term for their big data, is pretty accessible. Power BI is Data Studio. Yes, thank you, Brian. Data Studio. Google Data Studio is one that we're seeing, you know, a lot of people are using. Power BI. I love Tableau, but Tableau is heavy. But again, like if you own that data, then you should have access to be able to pull that data into your own tools.
So David, I always like talking like, you know, Martian, you know, UFO flies down. Let's explain it from beginning to end. So there's a couple things. The first presentation, I think it was 4 years ago, which was hilarious, by the way. We haven't thrown you any jokes yet. But anyway, you know, the first presentation that I ever saw you do, and it was actually a video that I asked you for a couple weeks back, but it's so true. And the end of the question, so I want you to be thinking about this, is as people sitting behind the desk, as marketing managers, I know, you know, Brian Toole just, you know, brilliant mind, does a lot of great stuff with geofencing and others, and Brian's going to be on TIMTALKS soon. But, you know, what should people, where do they really need to focus? And I want to have that marinate for just a second. But one of the really cool things that Foureyes does, and this isn't a Foureyes commercial, I was just blown away with it. You know, all of us that have sold cars, pencil deals, you know, we've got, and I was that guy before, 20 some years ago. You know, you sell a car, and do we really put all your customers' information into the CRM? You know, a person can say, I close 80% of the customers that walk in the door, and we kind of know that that's not true. And you close 80% because you're not putting all the people that come into the front door into the CRM. So that's kind of a cool thing that Foureyes does, is it literally holds accountable for phone calls, which is, I believe, patented by your company. So a phone call connects with a customer ID and a script into that CRM to where you know exactly where that customer is going. But what I'm trying to get at is you can't, even as a desk manager, even as a salesperson, you can manipulate your own data by not logging. As simple as, I mean, we're talking heavy data systems, but we also talk as granular as a salesperson not logging it up. Therefore, by not logging it up is creating bad data. Companies like Foureyes obviously are doing a fabulous job there. So just let us know, you know, David, if you're getting ready, I always ask most of the guests on here, if you were getting ready to, you know, sit behind the desk and you just got a job of running a monster dealership, what would the data points, you know, we talk about data, we use it, but what were the data points? Because we know, because I've been that guy sitting behind the desk. I know there's guys and girls sitting behind the desk in dealerships all over the country that are going to see this. And we've got that third-party report. We've got that report from that such and such vendor that says, you crushed it last month. Well, how did we crush it? I did this many uniques and we did this. So my question is, you're a brand new dealer, or you're getting moved to a high-profile store or a store in general. What are the data points that we need to really be targeting and focusing on to get the best bang for our buck in our ad spend? And gosh, we could chase rabbits down Facebook and a bunch of other things, but what would you put the magnifying glass on?
So, you know, like part of the big data sort of distraction we have is that there's all this data that can inform these decisions. And again, we're kind of arguing that it's not informing the decisions like it was anticipated. At the end of the day, right, a dealership is a lead generation business. And in a lead generation business, you have really two questions. Where am I getting my leads? How am I closing them? That is the top level question. And my belief with data is like, data actually doesn't answer questions, it asks better questions. So you start there. Where am I getting my leads and how am I closing them, right? Like the reality is like, you know, and I talk about this, is that we with all of our data, we have a harder time answering that question today than we could in 1990. Right? In 1990, it was like, well, I'm advertising on TV and I got the newspaper and I got this. So I kind of understand where am I getting my leads and how am I closing it. Now with multi-touch, all the stuff we're doing, we don't actually understand that. And by not understanding that, we're not asking the right follow-up questions. So first thing is like, do you even know your close rate? Right? What's your close rate on your leads? And then good data asks better questions like, okay, now break down the sources. Like I would argue with like CarNow, with Foureyes, with what we do, are we really a lead source or are we a conversion tool, right? I mean, one of the things in automotive in the ADF profile is we all put ourselves as a lead source when we send the lead into the CRM. But CarNow is a conversion tool on the website. What was the media? What was the paid media or that channel that drove that lead in? So, good data asks questions. So it's like, if you start at where am I getting my leads and how am I closing them? And you go, wait a second, hey, CarNow and Foureyes, I see some entries in my system, but you're not a lead source. So let's talk about how to change that and move the problem down. I think, anytime I see a dealer with a really high close rate, my first question becomes, what percentage of leads are you not logging in your CRM?
Right.
Because, and I think, I can't remember if you were at this meeting, but I had this dealer argue with me that he had a 25% close rate. And I said, look, you show me a 25% close rate, I'll show you a dealer that's not logging 25% of their leads in their system. And we ended up doing a test with that dealer, and their number was significantly higher than 25% of their leads were not making it into their CRM. So their close rate was not a real close rate. But like, and here's another example where I think like we've learned sort of the bad side of data. So when we first started reporting on what percentage of leads did not make it in your CRM, we grouped phone calls, forums, and chats into one number. And so we'd send that to dealers like, hey, 15% of your leads aren't making it in. We'd be putting them in for them, but like they would see that one number. But what started happening over time was that they always went back to their salespeople. When leads don't make it in, they would go back to their salespeople and say, what are you doing? Leads aren't making it in. But if a form isn't making it into your CRM, that's a technical issue. If a phone call isn't making it in, that's a process issue. So we were treating those all the same. We were presenting one piece of data and they were treating it all like it was a process issue. And we learned, okay, we got to break this up into two pieces because these are really two totally different issues. And that's one thing where like you start to see that the way you present data can have these, unintended consequences that we have to be mindful of. It happens. And then how do you adjust to it?
Yeah, I believe in it now more than ever. And again, we obviously, I love the conversion tool because you can see, we used to say 5.5 years ago, you can go buy a bunch of junk leads. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, there's certain companies, even not so much around today, that you can go buy leads. But it doesn't matter. We used to go into every talk, and you might have heard me say this in the infancy of CarNow, leads don't matter. Selling and servicing automobiles matter. And as long as we are converting those leads, however, and I absolutely agree with you. We have had many dealers. I hate mentioning anybody because we have some fabulous dealers, but there's a certain several dealer groups as of late that has done just that. Not only pulled a source report and a subsource report in their CRM to see what's actually closing. Now, once they get into your tool, then you can look at the conversion rates. Once they're into your tool, in fact, I was so privileged, I think it was a year or so ago, which really kind of beefed up our relationship. You pulled me aside. We were at a conference at FCA, and you pulled me aside and said, hey, I don't know that you know this, but have you seen your lead conversion against the rest of the field? And let's just say it was very, very encouraging information on how our tools were reacting. And at the end of the day, Mr. or Mrs. Dealer, you need to fire CarNow if we are not providing for you sold and serviced automobiles, and you need to be able to pull that through a source report. But at the same time, I heard a dealer group. There was a particular company that went in, and this is a 24-store dealer group, and this particular company was selling impressions on their, let's just say their sites. Okay, I'll be as vague as I can. And they wanted some astronomical number, 24 stores. It was like $80,000, $90,000 a month. And they started really, I guess, let's say politely poo-pooing even traditional media, 30-second commercials, banner ads, all these different things that got that customer to your site. At that point, then it's our job to convert, just like you said. Building, and again, we talked to multiple dealers. We talked to Sarah Fisher and others. We talked a couple weeks ago about building a brand. It's all part of the building blocks. So ladies and gentlemen, we have data for days, and you've got companies out there that are going to try to sell data. Make sure that you have a full understanding. If you need help, I know that, we always say we want to get better together. If you want to look at whether it's Foureyes or you want to talk to David and unpack, something at your store, no obligation. We're not selling you anything. We just want to get better. We're going to be happy to do that. We have a long question in there. Do you see that, David?
Let's see here.
Sorry. Actually, look, I just set you up. I don't have any questions. Just wanted to let David know that I'm a very big fan of Foureyes. And any doubts? Foureyes, email engagement products, open rate, click-through rates. Wrong. That's a really long deal, and my eyes hurt, and I'm getting old. Basically, a big fan of Foureyes, who just left that. Looks like.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think like, and I didn't set that up. I promise you.
I know. Thank you, Brian.
We started doing something in COVID. We took a risk where we just started giving our software away for free. We did 60
That's right.
trials.
I remember that conversation. We talked in March about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, now that we've done it, we're now leaning on, because like Foureyes is different. It's not a CRM. We don't exist we're not clean in a category. So it's like people kind of have to experience it. There's not in order to know like it really works. So we started doing 60-day trials. We're now pivoting. Our whole process is now based off basically letting people just try it 60 days. I like it because it makes us have to prove our value.
Yeah.
We have to say, look, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're going to do this for 60 days on us. Go for it. So, I mean, anybody who's on this call can get a 60-day free trial. If you haven't gotten one already, if you did, I'm not giving you another one. But you can try it out, and that allows you to. And the tool that we currently do that with, we're moving with all of our tools to be able to say, how do people sample this, and we have to prove to them the value of it. And I just like that as an exercise.
Absolutely.
One of the really interesting things with data that's sort of coming out of that free trial program is like, so we onboarded over 1,000 clients by giving it away for free. And we started seeing like, I'm getting really into it, so I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I will. We started seeing, we have really good like open rates of our emails. We do a really good job. We understand exactly what time to send people, when they're most prone. We understand that on a user by user basis. So we have really good open rates, really good click rates. That usually impresses people. But then you'll see dealers that have lower open rates and lower click rates, sometimes really good dealers. And we've started unpacking like, well, what is the lead sources? What are their lead sources? And we're starting to realize that essentially we can use our system of monitoring customer behavior to measure the efficacy of different lead sources. For example, if your website leads are opening at 40% open rate and 15% click rate, but then you're buying third-party leads and they're opening at 11% and 2%, what does that tell you about those third-party leads, right? Like, okay, now can we give you data that you can use to go back and drive stronger performance from that lead source? I'm really excited about, like, that's some of the ways, like one of the ways we're using data. One of the other really, I'm going to tangent into something totally crazy for a second, but that has been really interesting is that I got sort of, if you look like at how website scripts are added to websites, right? In the old days, you would call the website provider and they would put the script in line, right? And in the old days, you could just like pretty simple, right click view source. So if I wanted to see like if Car Now was on a website, I could right click view source. I could search for Car Now and I could see your script on the website because the website vendor had added it. But what's happened with like Google Tag Manager and all the Tag Manager accounts is that now you add them through Tag Manager. So you don't need to call the website provider. You can just put, hey, give me access to your Google Tag Manager. But oftentimes dealers are like, I don't have access. And the vendor will say, no problem, I'll create something just to prove it. And so they'll have all these different Google Tag Manager accounts. But the way that Google Tag Manager loads, you can't actually see what scripts are on the website. You can't just right click and view source like you used to. And so we recently we built a system that allows us to see all of the scripts that are actually on a website. And we started finding all these dealers, some big dealer groups that have, a ton of security concerns and paperwork they want you to sign. And we're going to really protect the security. We're going to make sure we know what's on our website. They have websites with 8 different tag manager accounts that they don't have access to. They have all these scripts of vendors that they fired years ago that are still on their website. Yeah. And so we're getting ready, putting our money where our mouth is. We're getting ready to just release that as just a free tool to analyze, where we're saying, hey, look, you can use this tool and analyze what's actually on your website. How many Google Tag Manager accounts do you have? What are the scripts actually loaded? I'm really excited about it. We've been playing around with that data in the back. I will say I can see in that data the tremendous growth of Car Now with how many sites you guys are on. So we see a lot of your growth. The other thing I'll tell you, I pulled you aside years ago because I could see that something you guys had done had made your close rates go up quite a bit. I was a late convert to chat. And I still have like my pain points with chat, in that I don't like chat bots. Like I think like we do so much to get a lead. Why do we put a robot in front of them? But I will say that the proof is in the pudding. We do see your close rates on the Car Now leads as being really high. We also have seen you have some accounts that just crush it, that have just like crazy high close rates off their Car Now leads. And so I think it's we've seen that. I think it's I've shared some of that when we see it. It's led me to be a convert. I'll say that much.
Well, we appreciate that. And as we begin to land the plane, what can we do together? What can we do about, I guess, possibly together to correct our own hypocrisy, and really, the one thing look, we are transparent. We at Car Now, look, those of you that know us, those of you that partner, if you're not, we call it as we see it. And the thing I love about Foureyes, the thing I love about David, he calls it it is what it is. And good, bad, or indifferent, love it or hate it, the data is what it is. But let me ask you, what could we be doing together? How could we kind of unmask, because a lot of companies are like the Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the man behind the wall, right? Yeah, you look at this data, don't look at that data, don't look at that guy behind the wall. We have last click attribution, this attribution, that attribution, all this other crap. So what can we be doing to work together, brother? We're gonna have a conversation out here in front of God and everybody. So what can we do?
Well, and I think like the reality is if you have a good dev team, which I believe you have, by nature you're going to be resource constrained. You're going to have more projects on their plate than you have time to do. And so the challenge with us vendors is like, well, how do you justify doing some of these projects where the ROI is unclear, where it's like, it's great for our mutual customers, but how do we do it? And I think like where we've kind of leaned in and said, wait a second, we keep on having these conversations with other vendors that we like and we'd love to work with, but it's hard to move them up our dev priority.
Right.
Is we're basically saying, how do we expose our data in a quicker way so that we can, when we talk about doing an integration, it's really fast. It's like, hey, we can set this up in 20 minutes. Here's the access to the API. Here's the data we need. It's way less of a lift, which is a problem a lot of us vendors have. It's like, we want to work together. A lot of vendors, it's like, I'll knock the CRM or DMS providers, but sometimes it's like, well, they want to work with us. Their APIs just are not robust enough to allow that to happen really quickly. Right. So we're putting our money where our mouth is. I mean, we're basically going to say we're going to build out a feature set that allows a dealer to get access or give access, so they can say, hey, Foureyes car now, play well together, and make it really quick. We have to make it faster.
Yeah.
And make it, speed up. I mean, everything's, our goal is to make dealerships more efficient. Our internal goal should be make our developers more efficient. So I think it's that's where I think, in the next few months, you'll see us start to have that conversation about being able to give you API access. And
Brian Neves is already asking, how soon for the script tool?
So script tool, so we're planning on releasing it in September. Brian, if you have, if you want to look at your site, our data collection's already collecting that data. David at Foureyes.io, email me your site, and I can take you behind the scenes and we can look at it while we build out the front end for it.
Guys, I just want to thank you so much. For starters, if you have any other questions, please type your questions. We'll be happy to answer them before we close out. But just a real quick recap. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, at your dealership, what data you're putting in. Make sure that your salespeople are putting in the right. Everybody's close rates, especially salespeople, they want to make sure that their close rates, look good. And I would argue that the majority of the dealerships in the country are not putting every lead into their CRM. And if you haven't seen Foureyes, I will give it another plug. David Kane, who's a dear friend, gave me a compliment. I had the privilege of speaking at a 20 group that he had about a year ago, and a little less than a year ago. And he said, I believe every dealership in America should have American flag out front in car now. And I will say that I truly believe that every dealership in America, because cut the crap. I mean, you want to put something in your dealership that measures car now, that measures whatever platform, that measures your CR, that measures your website. And just to summarize everything David said very simply, it's just this simple. Make sure that you're looking at your lead conversion and your lead to close, your sales. Those are the most important things. Pull your source reports and find out what is working, not just in lead conversion, but what is getting through your GA account, through your Foureyes program, what is getting that customer to click chat, to click text, to click calculate payments in a DR tool, and finding that out. I thank you guys so much. Again, American flag, Foureyes in every dealership in America.
Thank you, Tim. This was great. I think you do a good job just putting yourself out there. It's to be commended. You've always done that, so I really
look, man. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, and that's kind of the thing. The great thing is, I even went back to Peter Hennessy at Hennessy Automotive Group, who his family owns that group. And I went back to him about a year after we started Carnell. And I was a pretty good car guy, but I just went into his office almost teary-eyed and said, I just want to apologize to you. Because I did a pretty good job, but I was such in a silo that we did a pretty good job, but I didn't listen to things like this. I didn't try to we were crushing it CPO-wise, and I didn't listen to things like this, and I could have got better. So that just, especially when COVID hit, man, it just got laid on our heart here at Carnell and TIMTALKS, our team, just to try to come together, whether you are a partner with us or not. Let's put some smarter people than all of us together, and let's get better together. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not signed up, again, everybody that listened today is going to have a chance to win. We've been talking about luxury. We've been talking about taking care and creating that brand. We don't know where you live because we have no idea who's going to win, but we're going to put you in a 4 or 5, again, whatever's closer, star hotel, and we are going to take care of a beautiful dinner. We're going to give you a gift card for a couple $100 so you and your loved one, your guest, whoever, can enjoy an amazing time on us as you can experience luxury, so you can hopefully take that back to your dealership and then bestow luxury and building your brand together. David, any closing comments, my friend?
I mean, thank you guys so much. It's great. It's Tim, keep up the good work out there, and yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you register for next week. As always, no one's smarter than everyone. Let's continue every week to get better together. We'll see you soon.